The Night Circus. Aaron Morgenstern. A dreamy literary fantasy set around a traveling circus where the strongest pull is mood, sensation, and slow discovery rather than action. This video is for readers who want a book to feel like a place. Visually immersive books create mental images that stay vivid even when the story is calm. They work through texture, light, weather, objects, and repeating motifs. That is why you can love them even if you are not chasing speed. In this guide, I am not ranking by quality. I am sorting by the kind of atmosphere you will step into. Some books give you rich tactile detail. Some give you a designed aesthetic that never breaks. Some feel visual because the author controls space and movement as if the camera is always placed with intention. The goal is decision clarity. If you want soft wonder and lush imagery, you will probably start with The Night Circus. If you want wide, quiet scenes that feel like still frames, you may prefer Station 11. If you want a landscape that feels beautiful and wrong at the same time, Annihilation is the clearest pick. One practical note before we begin. Atmosphere-first books often reward attention more than speed. If you normally skim, try reading one chapter with full focus and see if the pictures sharpen. If they do not, that is not a failure. It just means this style is not your current mood. Now let us define what immersion actually means and how to tell which kind you are buying. Station 11. Emily St. John Mandel. A quiet literary speculative novel that uses a wide lens and a reflective tone, with scenes that feel like careful snapshots rather than non-stop action. When people say a book is visually immersive, they usually mean one of three mechanisms. First is sensory rendering. This is when the author gives you concrete nouns and physical signals, so your brain builds a scene automatically. Think fabrics, lighting, weather, objects on a table, and the sound of a room. Second is designed atmosphere. This is when the book has a clear aesthetic and it stays consistent. The Night Circus is a classic example because the images repeat and they accumulate into a coherent visual world. Third is spatial clarity. This is when the setting feels navigable. The Shining is strong here because you can picture the building as you move through it. A clear mental map can feel more immersive than poetic language. These mechanisms are independent of pacing. A fast thriller can be visually thin. A slow novel can be visually intense. So the question is not how quickly the story moves. The question is whether the prose keeps putting clear pictures in front of you. To test this, read 2 pages and ask a simple question. Can you picture where you are standing? Can you picture what the air feels like? Can you picture the distance between objects? If the answer is yes, the book is doing the work for you. Next, we will talk about how to read atmosphere books so they stay calming rather than demanding. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Susanna Clarke. A large-scale historical fantasy in an alternate England, written with a classic voice and a deliberately old-fashioned texture, full of places you can almost walk through. Here is how to get maximum immersion from these picks. Read slightly slower than you think you should. Let your eyes pause on nouns, not on plot beats. When the author gives you a specific object or a seasonal detail, treat it like a camera focus. Many readers bounce off atmosphere books because they bring the wrong expectation. They want constant twists. These books want steady attention. So instead of asking what happens next, ask what this place feels like right now. A simple habit helps. After each chapter, name one image you can still see. It can be as small as a doorway, a street, or the light in a room. This keeps the book visual even if the pacing is gentle. Format choice matters too. Print and ebook make it easier to linger on descriptive passages. Audiobook can still work, but only if you are comfortable letting the narrator set the pace. If you feel restless on audio, switch to text for the most image-heavy sections, and use audio for travel and chores. Finally, give yourself permission to stop if the mood is wrong. Atmosphere is like music. Even the best track will feel flat on the wrong day. Now we will move from technique to mood matching, so you can pick the right immersive experience on purpose. The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Neil Gaiman. A compact modern fantasy with a gentle voice and a slightly uncanny atmosphere, rooted in familiar places that slowly feel transformed in memory. Mood matching matters more than genre labels. A visually immersive book can feel comforting, eerie, or awe-filled. That emotional color will determine whether you enjoy the experience. If you want warmth, choose books where the imagery is inviting and the prose feels smooth. The Night Circus is a strong option here because it is designed to feel like wonder. If you want quiet reflection and wide scenes, Station 11 is a better match because it feels like curated still frames. If you want tension and a strong sense of architecture, The Shining is the obvious pick because the setting feels like a real building you can navigate. If you want beauty with discomfort, choose Annihilation because it makes nature feel vivid and unsettling at the same time. If you want immersion through scale and texture, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell offers the most density, but it also asks the most patience. Reader warnings are part of decision clarity. Atmosphere books are not always easy books. Some are slow on purpose, some are eerie, some are long. So your best next read depends on your current tolerance for patience and your appetite for darkness. In the next sections, I will walk through each core pick and explain what kind of visual immersion it delivers, who it fits, and one honest caveat. The Night Circus, Erin Morgenstern. A romantic atmospheric fantasy that feels like walking through candlelight and velvet tents, where the scenes are the main pleasure and the plot is intentionally secondary. This is immersion through designed atmosphere. The book builds a consistent aesthetic, and it does not break it. You get repeated motifs, textures, and small visual set pieces that feel like exhibits you can wander through. Who this is for? Readers who want wonder without pressure. Readers who like the feeling of strolling through a place and noticing details. Readers who do not mind a softer plot engine, because the payoff is the mood itself. One honest caveat: if you need constant momentum, this can feel slow. The best way to read it is in longer sessions, because the atmosphere deepens when you stay inside the circus for a while. A useful tip for visual readers: notice how often the book returns to specific colors and materials. When you spot a repeating image, pause for a second and let the picture settle. That is where the immersive effect comes from. If you want the most beginner-friendly entry on this list in terms of pure wonder and easy mental imagery, this is usually it. Next, we will look at a different kind of immersion, where the atmosphere comes from density and historical texture rather than a single aesthetic. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Susanna Clarke. A sprawling historical fantasy that reads like a classic novel, full of social settings, libraries, streets, and landscapes that feel convincingly textured and lived in. This is immersion through scope and tone. The narrative voice creates the feeling that you are reading a book from another era. That tone is part of the visual experience, because it changes how you picture rooms and people. Who this is for? Readers who enjoy slow burn detail. Readers who like alternate history texture and long conversations about ideas. Readers who want a world that feels complete even when nothing urgent is happening on the page. One honest caveat: it is long and it is intentionally patient. If you rush it, the immersion fades. If you accept the pace, the setting becomes extremely vivid. How to make it easier? Treat it like a season of television rather than a movie. Read in chunks of 50 to 80 pages. Stop at natural scene breaks. Let the world build its weight over time. If The Night Circus is a single set, this book is an entire city and countryside with weather, manners, and history. Next, we will shift into immersive writing that feels more like exploration, where the pictures are sharp and the mood is uneasy. Annihilation, Jeff Vandermeer. A strange, compact science fiction thriller, set in an isolated natural zone, written with clean, unsettling imagery that makes ordinary landscapes feel newly alien. This is immersion through controlled unease. The prose is not ornate, but the images are precise. You see plants, structures, and terrain, with a clarity that feels like exploration in a game where the map is familiar and wrong. Who this is for? Readers who like mystery in the environment. Readers who enjoy atmosphere that feels slightly hostile. Readers who prefer short books that still leave strong visual residue in the mind. One honest caveat: the book is intentionally strange. It does not explain everything in a comforting way. If you want neat answers, this may frustrate you. If you want a place you can picture and feel unsettled by, it is excellent. How to read it for maximum immersion. Slow down when the book describes the landscape. Do not skim the natural details. Those details are the core experience. An extra note on series context: this is the first book in the Southern Reach sequence. You can stop after this one and still feel satisfied with the experience of the setting. Next, we will go to a very different kind of immersion, where the book is short, lyrical, and built around intimate places that feel haunted by memory. The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Neil Gaiman. A short, lyrical, modern fantasy that blends everyday English countryside textures with a soft, eerie glow, like memory turning ordinary places into myth. This is immersion through voice and intimate setting. The book uses familiar objects and landscapes, then shifts them slightly so they feel symbolic and vivid without becoming hard to follow. Who this is for? Readers who want a quick immersive hit. Readers who like gentle prose that still creates strong images. Readers who prefer a smaller scale experience where the atmosphere feels close to the skin rather than epic. One honest caveat: this is emotionally tuned. If you want a purely external adventure feel, it may seem inward. If you enjoy books that feel like remembering a place, it will land. How to fit it into a reading habit. This is a great between books palette cleanser. It also works as an entry to Gaiman, if you want to see his style before you commit to longer work. If you want the most approachable immersive book on this list by length and clarity, this is the safest bet. Next, we will look at immersion through wide framing, where the pictures come from quiet scenes that feel like carefully chosen photographs. Station 11, Emily St. John Mandel. A literary speculative novel with a calm voice and a wide lens, where scenes feel like carefully composed images, and the atmosphere comes from contrast and human-scale detail. This is immersion through panoramic snapshots. It does not rely on heavy description in every paragraph. Instead, it gives you moments that feel like still frames, and the sequence of frames creates a vivid world in your memory. Who this is for? Readers who like reflective tone. Readers who want a book that feels cinematic without feeling busy. Readers who want to be moved by mood and observation rather than constant plot movement. One honest caveat: if you need an obvious central quest, this can feel diffuse. The payoff is the feeling of perspective and the clarity of certain scenes. How to read it for immersion. Do not binge it at top speed. Give yourself small pauses between chapters so the images can settle. This book rewards that spacing in a way many faster novels do not. If your definition of immersion is seeing a whole world in quick, clear images, this is the best match in the set. Next, we will cover a very different kind of visual experience, where the setting feels like a building you can walk through and the atmosphere tightens around you. The Shining, Stephen King, a psychological horror novel set in an isolated hotel, built on strong spatial description and rising tension where hallways, rooms, and weather feel physically present. This is immersion through place as pressure. King is unusually good at making a setting feel like a real building with real distances. You can picture layouts, doors, corridors, and the way sound travels. That spatial clarity is why the book feels so visual even for readers who do not normally chase horror. Who this is for? Readers who want a strong sense of location. Readers who like atmosphere that tightens and becomes heavy. Readers who want clear images rather than poetic haze. One honest caveat: it is horror, and it is intense. If you avoid darker mood, choose the Night Circus or the ocean at the end of the lane instead. If you can handle tension, the hotel setting is one of the most vivid in popular fiction. How to read it for immersion? Pay attention to movement through the building. When the book describes a turn, a staircase, or a long corridor, picture it like a floor plan. That mental map is part of the experience. This is also a useful pick if you want to understand how authors create atmosphere with space rather than with lyrical language. Now we will close by turning these 6 books into a simple decision rule you can reuse for future reading. Annihilation, Jeff Vandermeer. A focused, eerie science fiction novel with vivid natural imagery, designed to make a landscape feel like a living environment that you are exploring step by step. Here is a simple decision rule that will keep you from buying the wrong kind of immersion. Pick the emotional color first, then pick the book. For wonder and crafted beauty, start with the Night Circus. For intimate, uncanny memory, start with the ocean at the end of the lane. For wide, reflective scenes, start with Station 11. For sharp, uncomfortable exploration, start with Annihilation. For historical texture and maximum density, start with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. For architecture and pressure, start with The Shining. If you want a 2-book stack, combine one gentle atmosphere book with one sharper one. For example, read The Night Circus then Annihilation, or read Station 11 then The Shining. This keeps your mood varied while staying in the visual lane. One last practical tip for long-term use. When you finish an immersive book, write down 3 images you still remember a week later. That becomes your personal immersion profile. Over time, you will learn whether you respond most to sensory detail, designed aesthetics, or spatial clarity. If you want the clean list with links and the exact titles again, open the long description and use the pinned list. And if you want more guides like this, the channel has reading orders and what to read next paths built around the same calm decision logic.